Yesterday, we were talking about the concept of save the date, and we were looking at this parable of this wedding banquet that happened way back in the day where this king told everybody who was going to be invited to his son's wedding feast to save the date, and I'll let you know when we got things cooking and everything's rolling, then just hustle right over and we're going to celebrate like there's no tomorrow for days on end. It's going to be great. And then when it comes time, people don't show up. They're not into it. And somehow this means something about God's relationship with the religious leadership at the time and maybe even more. And so we're going to pick it up in Matthew 22, basically starting in verse 1 with the parable of the wedding banquet. All right, let's get after it. So then he sends some more servants. It kind of feels like that last parable a little bit. Like, okay, let's send Mike, because he's a little bit more forceful of the servant, and we'll see if he gets it done. So Mike goes over there and delivers the message. This is to all those who have been invited that I've already prepared my dinner. Like the food is ready. The animals are already dead. Like, we mopped up the blood and everything. It is hardcore go time, food time. And in the message that Mike is sent out with, paraphrases mine, is come to the wedding banquet. Like, the food's ready. Let me just bottom line it for you, friends who agreed to come to the wedding banquet. Come to the wedding banquet. But they paid no attention and went off. One to his field, another to his business. They were just busy. They had things going on. I mean, the way the story unfolds is a little bit reminiscent of the story of the Good Samaritan. People just had really important places to be, and they couldn't do the kingdom value thing for someone in need, especially because in that story, the someone in need was gross and undesirable. But here, the people in view are desirables. I mean, this is a king who prepared a wedding banquet for his son, the prince. It's not even like this is just a rich family and this is even Steven relationally. I mean, there's a hierarchy here. People have sworn oaths of loyalty to this king. He's their king. This is their future king. What the original audience would have heard here with these refusals was confusion, I think. Do these people not care about their own well-being? Do they not understand that they don't have a business? They don't even have a field if it's not by the good graces of the king who is sovereign over the land? Like, you would be advised if you had that invite to show up. Well, is it mandatory? It's like the question I get asked all the time by college freshmen. Hey, we're doing this thing. It's important. We're going to watch this thing and have a discussion group, and there'll be free food, and it's going to be a lot of fun for everybody. A little bit of extra credit. I hope you come to the thing. Question. Yes, person in the front row who is a freshman and therefore doesn't get it and is about to ask me if it's mandatory or not. Go ahead. Oh, yeah, that was my question. Is it mandatory? You're thinking like a high school kid. I just invited you to my house with my wife and my family, where we're going to do an event that celebrates learning and the fact that we are a class together. I am the sovereign over your grade. I'm inviting you into the world of the discipline you are studying. Like, who cares if it's mandatory? Come to the thing. You got invited, kid. And what I would find in defense of those students is that given a little bit of time, most of them would figure it out and get that the not mandatory stuff was really the bread and butter of the program. And those are the things that you want to be around for, to show up for, to be present for. But this would have been mind-boggling to the people who are hearing this for the first time, because it's just so dang not self-aware on the part of the people who don't show up. So they don't pay attention. They got things to do, a field that really the king owns and a business that really the king owns. And at this point, you're like, man, that is a sad, disappointing story that these people were too busy, that maybe they got a text or something better came up, and so they're going to chase down this alternative option that's really, really tacky, really not self-aware, and really disappointing. Then you continue reading. Jesus goes on with the parable. So they paid no attention to the second servant, that's Mike, and one went to his field, another to his business. And then verse 6, the rest seized his servants, mistreated them, and killed them. Wait, what? The king invited you to a party at the king's house. The king owns all the things, and you got invited to that party. You want to go to that party, but if you really don't want to go, I guess the thing to do would just be not go and just not attend and hope that he didn't notice that you rejected his hospitality after you agreed to take. What you wouldn't want to do is grab Mike and then beat him up real good, like put him in the middle of one of those kick circles like they do in movies and have everybody come out and kick him and there's dust and everything, and he's all in the fetal position, so you get him in the kidneys real good. And then after you're done with the kick circle with Mike, you're like, you know what, at this point, we're like 80% of the way there. They bring out the execution stick, and then you just straight up kill Mike. He's inviting you to a thing. What's the matter with your brains? Verse 7, the king was enraged. He sent his army and destroyed those murderers and burned their city. That's pretty good. I mean, it's a bummer about the rest of the city. Justice worked a little differently back then, but that indicates to me that these people who rejected this were people who had holdings. They were landed. They were titled. These were nobility who have governance under their authority. And their job then is to be a conduit for the people under their small pocket of governance to be in communion with the king to make the whole hierarchy of society work. And they didn't do that. And what's interesting too is that Verse 7 here kind of answers the question that Jesus left hanging in the previous parable, which is in Matthew 21, that we were looking at a little bit ago. It's the one about the same situation, the vineyard owner and the tenants seize and kill the servants and then seize and kill the son. And then Jesus wraps it up. He doesn't say what happens. Therefore, when the owner of the vineyard comes, what will he do to those tenants? He asks. And you'll recall that their response is like, well, I mean, he's going to punish them and he's going to give the thing to somebody else and somebody will hopefully do it right. But Jesus, you'll recall, does not specifically answer the question himself. Until right here in what we just looked at with like, yeah, that's what the king's going to do. That makes perfect sense. This is how kings work. You should have gone to the party. Yeah, I say that kind of jokingly, but you'll notice that he didn't really burn anybody's villages for not going to the party, but the killing thing, that was enough to send him into that state of judgment. Well, verse 8, then he said to his servants, the wedding banquet's ready, but those I invited did not deserve to come. Go to the street corners and invite to the wedding anyone you find. First of all, huge props to this king on the order of operations. He sends out save the dates. People save the date and agree to come. Then he gets everything ready and kills animals and gets things started cooking. He's like, all right, table set, go get everybody. And he sends out the messengers and people are like, yeah, I'm not into it. I changed my mind. Something better came up. Sorry. And he's like, what? Okay, send the good messenger. Send Mike. And he sends him out. And everybody's like, nah, I'm still not going to come. And some were just so annoyed by Mike that they put him in the kick circle and kill him. And then the next thing the king does, he's like, okay, well, we need to go rain death on the cities of those nobles who behave like that. So we're going to go do that real quick. The food is still on. There's literally still burgers on the grill right now. He's like, hang on, I got a equivalent of first century run to the store. I just got to run to the city over here and burn their city real quick. Just like put them on the warmer. We should be back in a few minutes. And then he gets back and he's like, okay, who do we still have? Obviously Mike's out of commission. Okay. Cody, Kayla, now I just need you to go get somebody. Like, I'm not going to be embarrassed at my son's wedding. We're going to have a party and we are going to celebrate this because this wedding is true and right. And I am the rightful king. And this celebration has already been paid for and it's going to happen. And at this point, everybody's welcome. So I don't care. Go scare up some company for my kid's wedding. And to you and me, we're like, well, we don't have kings because we defeated George III and there's a treaty signed at Yorktown and Cornwallis lost. And so we don't have kings anymore. We do things democracy style, which is the right way to do things. And nothing could ever go wrong if you do things with voting. And so we don't really resonate with how crazy this would have sounded to the original audience anymore. But I think we can put ourselves in their shoes. You don't get invited to the king's house if you're a beggar on the street corner. Like, you get invited to the king's house even less if you're a beggar on the street corner in the first century than you would be getting to the ruler's house if you were a beggar on a street corner now. We have that notion of the common man and the citizen voter and all that did not exist here at all. There was no virtue signaling to be done. There was no social upside. There was no opportunity for that kind of upward mobility. This is far more shocking than imagining the president inviting somebody for a beer. This is a total sea change for how people would have conceived of authority and court culture and the social life of their betters. This never happened. And yet in this story, that is what Jesus is asking his audience to imagine and to conceive of. And so the servants, Cody and Kayla, went out into the streets and gathered all the people they could find, both good and bad. And the wedding hall was filled with guests. That's a pretty gigantic twist already, but this story has one more twist that we're going to need more time to think through. So we'll save that for next time around. And so acknowledging that before today, we did 3 long conversations about all these big historical theological questions about the church and Israel and everything else that goes into that. What I think we're seeing as we get to the 3/4 mark of this parable about the wedding banquet is that, yeah, there really is something to it here. There's a shift that is happening, and God is rejecting at least the leadership of Israel here. Maybe in a way, he is rejecting more than that. People disagree on that point, but surely he's saying that, look, status quo, that is not pointing to God. That is not the real deal. You guys were caretakers of this thing for a time, but you are not going to be caretakers of it anymore. Somebody else is going to be, and he's not saying it quickly. He still has more that he wants to pile on to make it clear just how significant this proclamation from God is toward these faithless, fruitless leaders. That's heavy stuff wrapped in well-paced and entertaining stories, and we've got more to think through on all of that, which we'll do next time around. I'm Matt. This is the 10-Minute Bible Hour podcast. Let's do this again soon.